Yes, everyone, you know what time it is. It's your boys Jack and Dave here, and it's transfer deadline day week. It's coming up Wednesday, at least for me, and I guess 48 hours until some of these moves need to start happening. Some players are already kind of on their way out the door. We can't confirm that Jed Spence is headed on loan to Leeds. We know that also Alfie Devine is on loan over at Port Vale, but plenty more to talk about because that's not just who we need out the door. We need plenty more out the door there.
Mm,
So also, some news is kind of breaking on ANSU Fati. Some news is breaking on Brennan Johnson. It seems like Spurs are sort of deciding between what could be a very expensive option permanently in Johnson, or could be an expensive option on loan in ANSU Fati. And definitely two players that I think are pretty different, but who knows? Maybe in the ANSU system could be quite similar to each other. Everybody, if you haven't already, please smash that like button. Just a quick sort of transfer update from Dave and I here. We will be doing a podcast kind of double next week. We'll double up on the podcast. Just it's very busy, I think, after the game day yesterday and it's kind of some of the breaking news that's going to be happening like every 15 or 20 minutes, it feels like, for the next 2 days here. So we're going to kind of focus on some of the news for the next 48 hours, see how things go there. And then, next week we'll double up on a podcast for every listener. And then also we're going to have the mailbag podcast for all of the members
mm.
only, where you guys can have kind of a private chat to yourselves. You guys get to ask us questions and all that good stuff. So, in sort of kind of a repayment of missing this podcast, we'll double up on the podcast next week.
Yeah.
Dave, now I finally will say hello to you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Jack. I'm good, my man. Back off a hike today. I had to walk off the demons of last night's result. Any members that's watched my post-match thoughts or post-match reaction will know I wasn't too happy. Thought it was very cowardly from the players last night. I get Andrew's taking a lot of the heat and a lot of the blame, but also I think we're missing the fact that a lot of them players had a massive opportunity last night to prove their worth, right? They sit
Right.
there, they cry, they moan about wanting game time. They want out because they're not part of the first 11. They're given the opportunity and they don't take it. It's
Yeah.
just really frustrating. So I had to go and walk that off me today. I walked myself into the ground, Jack. I'm absolutely in bits. But look, last night, if it signals anything, we've got more work to do in the window. So let's get into it.
Just quickly though, did the outlet have anything to say? Any sort of revelations, come from his side that the Harris Army should know about?
Nah, he was just as angry as me.
Mm,
He just saying things. We got a lot more work to do in the window. He hopes that it's Levy pulls his finger out and realizes that and gets some players in here before the window closes.
yeah.
He's not a big fan of Richarlison at all, Jack. He's really irritating him at the
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah. Patience is running thin.
But yeah, look, he's just not happy overall, Jack. But he does say, look, Ange should never have made 9 changes. But he's also like me, them players, they also given these opportunities and they ain't taking them. So, and then he
Definitely.
finished off by calling them a bunch of cowards, which I absolutely agreed with.
I mean, it's another familiar performance, but a familiar performance that, we've had in the past that we just definitely don't like. It leaves such a sour taste in, our mouth and leaves such a sour taste in the fan base. But let's greet some of the Harris Army here quickly, and then we'll get into these news, everybody. Derek Smith is in the house. Thank you for your support as a member, Derek Smith. And he's saying, or Rodrigo, if I'm not mistaken, you might mean the Leeds United Rodrigo. I kind of see him as a striker, if that's the one that you might be referring to, or you could mean the Real Madrid Rodrigo, if that's who you mean, is more of the winger over from Real Madrid. A very, very cheeky option there. But I feel like he gets a lot of game time. He seems to kind of be the future of that team, so it'd be hard to probably prize him away. Big up to you, Derek Smith, though. I like the ambition, my friend. Gamer16 is in the house as well. Hello, gents. Would say get ANSU Fati and Eric Garcia. Big upside if they do well. They could be long-term solution. Garcia lately making some errors, but he's been a City starter. I must be honest, Gamer16, like the Ansu Fati ambition there, but do not like Eric Garcia. I find him to be a bit of an imposter. I think he's made a lot of big, high-profile errors from what I've seen before, but I like your ambition on the Ansu Fati. Cranford's in the house as well. The question is now, who do we, the Spurs faithful, get stuck in with our squad since we can't offload the Deadwood? It's just, I think we're putting ourselves in our own trap here, Cranford. There's not really much of a solution to it. There's obvious solutions here that Spurs just either need to get these guys out with whatever means possible. And then if we don't, we're going to pay the prices for it like we have in the past. I don't think there's a solution if we don't get these guys out.
Look, we've been highlighting this was going to happen all summer long, Jack. We've been warning this is going to be happening all summer long. You know, early backers before they went on preseason. I've had enough of all the excuses for getting them out. I don't care. Pay them up if you have to. You know, big companies every single day of the week force people out of a job if they do not like that person, and they find their ways. So we need to do it. You know, withdraw that 50 million that still needs to be withdrawn and pay them off out of that. I don't care. No excuses for it anymore. I'm sick to death of these guys holding back the club, holding back everything we do. You know, they've done it under every single manager. They now make ANSU look average. They make Conte look average. They've made Jose Mourinho look average, you know, and they kill all momentum. We spoke about this last year under Conte. You put out the first 11 to do well. You put out the second. Next team we get out of cups and it kills momentum. I'm just fed up with it. No more excuses to pay them off. Just get them out.
Robbie Keane says, save the money for Johnson and sign Ansu Fati instead. He'll click in Angeball's system and will help Richie to score more goals. I like where you're thinking is Robbie Keane. Kamikaze's in the house. Thank you for your support as a member, my friend. And he says, Ansu Fati has that versatility and can play anywhere up front. Good to know, Kamikaze. Tyler's in the house as well. Good to see you as always, man. And he says, swap Tanganga cash for sure. Bring in Fati in on loan, sell Dyer, sell either Skip or Højbjerg, and buy Amrabat or Ndidi. To be honest, after last night, I'd say sell Skip and Højbjerg. It was atrocious from both of them, really. And then Tanganga, I think kid just needs a loan somewhere, but I'm not so sure about Parashur. Good to see you, though. Tyler, good to see you. Hotspur J as well in the house. Big up, everyone. Fati and Johnson will be good. Pacey additions, however, need to offload our deadwood ASAP. Leslie Crawford says Brennan Johnson is currently on a 30,000 per week. Ansu Fati is on 230,000 per week. Brennan wants to join Spurs. Fati would prefer a bigger club like Liverpool. Brennan played 38 Premier League games last season. Fati is injury prone. We can see where Leslie is headed on this one. She seems to be more on Brennan Johnson. Good to always see you in the house, Leslie. Donovan Osterreicher's in the building. Thank you for your support always, Donovan. He says, I still can't believe we're out of the cup. We need a statement result versus Burnley, or it's a strike. And then he also, we have King Hoddle in the house. Good to see King Hoddle. He says, I want Fati. We have a lot of thin players, so it would be nice to have a Fati as well. It'd be nice to have a Fati as well. King Hoddle, on a serious note, though, I feel like you're a guy maybe watch Barcelona from time to time. Let me know if you have any strong opinions on Ansu Fati. I feel like, you know, he's kind of really not done anything for a while, but we'll get into it later. We'll kind of, you know, give our real opinions on it. WW's in the house watching from Singapore. Shout out to Singapore. WW. Iceman's in here as well. Big up to you, Iceman, supporting the channel as well. He says, hi, Jack and Dave and everyone in the chat. Big up to you, my friend. David Clark's in the building. Always good to see you, David. Harry Kane is Dyer's new agent. He's telling Bayern what a great player Dyer is. Do you believe the rumors? Harry Kane is asking for his favorite golf partner back?
I hope so. He needs someone to go and fetch all the balls that he keeps kicking behind the goals, Jacko. So I hope he does. Look, just I actually don't care where he goes. You know, he can head out to Timbuktu for all I care about, to be honest with you, Jacko. I just want him gone.
I'm in agreement with that. Scott Heinem's in the building. Good to see you, Scott Heinem. Hopefully you're keeping well, my friend. And the Big D grabbing a membership as well. The Big D, let's see what I love the name as well. He's grabbed that Flat Cap membership. It's always good to have the Flat Cap membership, and welcome to the Flat Cap Army, the Big D. And I'm not sure if we really have, you know, somebody by the name of the Big D, and it's not been taken yet, that sort of nickname. So it's good to have you in here amongst us in the Army. Big up to you, my man. Dave, welcome ever referred to yourself as the Big D?
Yeah, welcome to the Big D Army, my man. Legend.
Oh, good to see you, my man. And as well, we have Martin Walton. Always good to see you, Martin. He says, does Cole Palmer going to Chelsea for up to 45 million offer after a grand total of 5 goal contributions kind of change people's opinion on the Johnson fee? Cole Palmer, that Man City talent, right? I mean, talented, but hasn't really, I think, done it when he's been given those chances for Man City. And, you know, he feels like he's a talented kid. Pep Guardiola rates him, but guess not really on that Phil Foden level, really, or anything like that. Like, he's not really broken into that first team ever. So, and Brennan Johnson, you know, in comparison, has had a lot of Premier League games experience. So, I don't know, Dave, is that a worthy comparison Martin's kind of bringing up here?
Look, you know, I've sort of said it this week, Jack, and we've said it before that, you know, we may not like the fee. At the end of the day, in our money, we're spending. So I couldn't care what the fee is, if you want me to be brutally honest at this point. I just want more reinforcements in the door. However, You know, we got to understand, if you're going to go for a player to sort out this homegrown issue at Tottenham, you're going to have to pay a fee. It's that simple. It comes with a premium. It comes with a tax. And you have to pay it, because if we don't, we end up with Dyer, we end up with Winks, we end up with Skip, we end up, all them crap players, young, homegrown players that just ain't good enough. That's what we end up with. So in order to sort out, we may not like the fee, but we're going to have to wrestle with it, accept it, and pay it.
Always good to see you, Martin Walton. Always good to see you, Paul Longworth. Terry Betts in here as well. He says we all know how it needs to go. I hope we get the balls to rip up the contracts of those who we can actually get rid of. I agree with you there, Terry. Good to see you, my man. Spurs 89 saying I'm still happy clapping, just in slow motion now. I just say give yourself 12 hours. You're probably going to be happy clapping at full speed once again. Spurs 89. It's okay to still be a little sore, but you got to believe in the Ange. And you also have to believe that this is all part of the learning curve, in my opinion. Big up to you, Spurs 89. Mark Ivy's in here too. He says if Fati comes in on loan instead of Brennan Johnson, then where is all that money going to be used? And good point there, Mark. Maybe nowhere. Spurs settling for a cheaper option, perhaps because they just aren't as confident in Brennan Johnson, even though they're kind of for two different, big fees. It could be that the 50 million pounds they just think is not really worth investing. And if they're not as confident as maybe others might be, and look how much they paid for Mickey Van de Ven, right? And they clearly have a lot of confidence in the guy. Do they have that same confidence in a Johnson that they did like a Mickey Van de Ven? Maybe not. So that's probably why the 50 million pound evaluation might be sort of, turning them the other way. Big up to you, Mark. Part of the Mark Army. Very, very, strong, next to the Dave Army. Alan H is in here too. We need to get a move on, or Liverpool and Chelsea will grab Fati and Brennan. TC Barton says we are coming mid-table if we don't buy any more defenders. I kind of still wish we see more defender news. I agree with you, TC Barton, because from what we saw last night, another, example of what happens when Romero or Mickey Van de Ven are injured or, need a rest of some kind, suspension. There will be somebody that will step in that just simply is not good enough and could cost us points, could cost us another cup competition or another cup opportunity. And it's kind of just tiresome to sort of repeat ourselves on this, but it feels like Spurs are just so slow when it comes to getting rid of those guys and still continue to give them too many chances. Peter Elsie's in here. He says, still pissed at yesterday. I feel you there, Peter. Ellie's in here. Good to see you, Ellie. And also, thank you for your support last night as well, Ellie. And she says, hey, Dave and Jack, what's cooking transfer-wise? Are we getting Ansu Fati or Brennan, or any news on a center back? Has been on streams and cooking myself. Always good to see you cooking, Ellie. Hopefully you have some sort of Greek meal lined up to maybe cope as well over these news, but can't give you any center back news, Ellie. I'm not going to make you wait. I'm not going to give you any center back news. Don't want to, make you wait in angst, but what would you say to Ellie, Dave?
I think you might have to dust off your boots, Ellie. It doesn't look like we're going to get a centre back. You might have to dust off your boots and, learn the position yourself. But also, if you've any dinner left over, I'd greatly appreciate it. I really don't want to cook tonight.
Dave worked his tail off on the hike, Ellie. He needs a good meal. Big up to you. Good to see you as always. Wayne Bonner, always good to see you too, my friend. He says, still interested in Johnson. We can do better, and for better money, still need a center back and a quality striker in. Everybody absolutely agrees with you there, Wayno, and really looking forward to having that Spurs story with you at some stage, my friend. Nomad says, I think getting Fati would be a mistake. Good to know that, Nomad. Lisa's in here too. Always good to see Lisa. She says, afternoon, guys. Big up. Andrew Seymour's in here too. Good to see you, Andrew. The Big D says, I think we should get Ansu Fati on loan and save the 50 million and put it towards a bid for Ivan Toney. Interesting. I guess if that's where the striker faith, is really lost by the time of January, right? We really are just completely giving up on Richarlison. Ivan Toney is all of a sudden a guy that, comes available. And if we did save the money, theoretically that 50 million could be used on a guy like Toney. I must be honest, I'm a little rubbed off the wrong way when it came to that, podcast that he did, and sort of the lack of accountability and sort of the lack of ownership, I think, of, his own kind of mistakes. But that's my own take from the podcast. And of course, everybody else can have their own opinions on it. But I must say, I was a little unimpressed by, how he kind of handled himself, I think, in that sort of interview, at least on some of it. But I don't know how much that really has to play in his overall footballing ability. Really, at the end of the day, he still probably will score 20 goals and grab 10 assists and be kind of the next closest thing to what sort of a Harry Kane type striker style is. He has that hold up play. and that aerial ability and that link-up play that Harry Kane similarly had in a way. So Ivan Toney, really great player. Was a little rubbed off the wrong way on that interview, I must say. Pick up back, Shags. Hopefully you're keeping well. Afanis Channel is in here too. Christoph is in here. Good to see you, Christoph. SOF, always good to see you, SOF. Fati is a more technical player than Johnson, coming from Barcelona. He's used to holding the ball and breaking down low blocks. Fati and Udoji down the left, Son up top. Very good point, right? That when we come up against these deeper block teams, that will not be unfamiliar to a guy like Ansu Fati. Always used to, teams setting up that way against Barcelona. Very good point there. Chris is in the house. Good to see you, Chris, my man. Hopefully you're holding it down here. And he says, evening, lads. I thought I'd be calmed down by now, but after last night, Højbjerg and Skip and Davies, Lo Celso and Sanchez do not deserve to be anywhere near the first team. Looks like those apology forms won't be happening anytime soon, Chris, when it comes to Lo Celso. I thought I was going to have to print them out and start filling them, but him being pulled off at halftime says a lot. I'm very interested to see why, Ange felt, that strongly about Lo Celso needing to be pulled off before Skip and Højbjerg, because Skip and Højbjerg weren't playing all that well themselves, right? But Lo Celso was taken off before them. He must have done something, said something, whatever it must have been that maybe led to him being pulled first. Good to see you, Bal, in the house as well. Patty Harnet's in here too. He says, evening, gents, still pissed off after last night. Ange made a massive mistake. In other news, I expect 2 in before Friday. Would you agree there with Patty, Dave? 2 in?
Look, I'd like more than 2 in. I think last night proves we probably need more than 2 in, if you want me to be brutally honest. But look, as for Ange, right, I get it, Paddy. I do get that Ange made the 9 changes, but he also has to give these players a chance to prove they're good enough, to prove their worth. And I don't think there's enough criticism a lot of the players last night. We keep doing this, right? Many people are starting to turn around. Oh, Davinson Sanchez, let's keep him. Maybe he's a good backup, this, that, and the other. Okay, well, that's what a backup does. Step in last night, right? What happened? So as much as we want to blame Ange, the fans need to force these players out now at this point. Boo them at every opportunity. I don't care. I've had enough of it. I know some people don't agree with the booing. But for me, when I'm there, if they still want to stay at this football club, they're going to get booed from now on, because they've had options to leave. They won't leave. And then they stick around as a backup. Then they come in. They're given chance after chance to prove they're good enough. And they just piss about and let every single manager down. So as much as we want to blame Ange, fine. Ange is the newest person in the door. But when are we going to put more of the onus on some of these players? They're taking extortionate money out of the club every single week for these performances. Can't keep blaming managers all the time. I get he made 9 changes, and I'm not hiding away from the fact, and I'm not shying away from that fact. And I 100%, I get it. He's a part to blame for it, right? But he's a new manager in. He's giving guys a chance in a meaningful game to show that they could be, before deadline day, to show that they could be a part of his squad. And that's the shit they produce. I'm sorry. You can blame Ange for making 9 changes, but once the players step over the white line, they also need to be blamed for their performances.
Yeah, but we've also seen them put in similar performances to an NS Mura, to a Colchester, to a Morecambe, those sort of sides as well, right? And that's where I think a lot of it isn't even their overall quality. Sometimes it's just their mentality as well, because while we sort of slag them off and say that they're not really Premier League standard, surely they're better than an NS Mura. Surely they're better than some of the teams that they've lost to in the past. So that's where a lot of it also, I think, just comes into the mentality. Some of these guys really can't seem to handle that high pressure sort of situation in these cup competitions when they step over that white line.
But the thing is, we're in danger of doing this whole thing again, Jack, where we keep going after the manager. People need to understand, in modern football, the squad needs to be rotated. I can understand the argument with this game, the game on the weekend, then you're in international break. He didn't have to do it then. I get that. And I'm not shying away from the fact that Ange made mistakes. Of course he did. But like I've said, underneath Conte, underneath Jose Mourinho, they're going to make mistakes when they have to rotate with these bums. Always going to happen.
Matureo's in the house saying Levy and the Yacht Man cashing in again, not really spending at all. Isn't the net spend so far just around £20 million or similar? I think I saw £12 million as like the figure or something like that. I could be wrong on that. Matureo, good to see you in the house. SOF says reports out today that Sanchez could stay. I did have a little debate between myself and Cody Mack on Twitter, where I think he was, I don't know if he was showing really that much sympathy. I think he was just sort of saying, Sanchez maybe shouldn't have been picked. And then I sort of kind of tried to defend Ange by saying, well, Sanchez has pretty much made it, he's tried his best to stick around. So that means he will inevitably be picked at some stage. If he's doing his best to try to force his way, to stick around at the club, and then he's also putting in performances here and there that sort of convince the manager, ultimately he will be picked at the end of the day. So the criticism that does sort of come his way is in his own way, it is kind of his choice, because he's been given multiple opportunities to leave. And don't even, like I said yesterday, don't even think about the Russia situation. Last season, he had opportunities to go to France. This season, he's had opportunities to go to France as well as Spain. There has been bids accepted and negotiations that have gone pretty far until they found out that the player was not willing to take such, lower wage demands or such a lower wage cut. And I understand, a player wants it perfect, right? They want the move away, and then they also want their wages to be met. But in Sanchez's situation, he's not played well enough where he deserves both. He's going to either get his move away from the club, or he's going to stick at Spurs and continue to get that wage packet that he feels like, he needs, or he feels like that he deserves for whatever reason. And that means then, if you're going to stick around at Spurs, you're going to continue to face the toxicity and continue to face, the criticism that the Spurs fan base will give you. And whether you think it's right or wrong, I think Sanchez has choices to be able to leave this club, and he's decided not to. So, the criticism will inevitably kind of still come his way for these sort of performances. Same thing is going to happen for Lloris. If Lloris is sticking around, his reputation is slowly getting more, I think, tainted and getting slowly more kind of ruined in a way because of his willingness to stay, or his lack or his reluctance to leave. Really, Eric Dyer, the same thing. Even though people didn't think of him that highly anyways, his sort of thing with sticking around, with he says he only wants to leave because I think he said something came out today, SOF, that apparently he will only leave if the move really suits him, apparently, even though it has been made very clear that he has no chance of getting into this team, that Postecoglou is not making him a part of his plans, in comparison to Sanchez, who seems to be slightly part of the plans. Eric Dyer is in no means part of the plans, and yet he still also kind of wants to stick around. So I just feel like a few of these guys, or more than a few of these guys, honestly, like the criticism and the embarrassment that is headed towards their way, in a way, I think they kind of deserve it, because it's their choice to stick around. It's they have opportunities to leave. If they wanted to escape all of this, they're welcome to do it, but they decide not to, because I guess the money means more to them, or whatever means more to them. It's maybe a hot take in my opinion, but it's just, I do think they can't have the best of both worlds. They can't get their move away, also get their wage demands, when they've been playing like shit and they don't even deserve, those wages in the first place, with those moves away.
But see, this is what annoys me though, Jack, right? People make excuses for Sanchez, and you can't do this and you can't do that, this, that, and the other. Then he goes out and puts in a performance, right? And then, I'm sitting there, I'm like, but this guy's going to cost you. Okay, but we've got a new manager, Dave. You have to give him a chance he has to give these players a chance, right? He goes out and does it. And then everyone then is blaming Ange Postecoglou for it. But hang on, only a month ago, people were saying, oh, he has to give them a chance. So what one is it? This is what drives me mad. We can't sit here and make excuses for some of these players. Sit there and go, well, new manager, they have to be given a chance, this, that, and the other. And then when he does it, he gets absolutely berated for it. I'm sick of it. Stop defending mediocrity, and then we will actually be able to keep a manager here. It's that simple. I'm fed up of it. You can't sit there and go, new manager, he has to give everyone a chance. And then when he does, goes, that's his fault. Honestly, it's absolutely insane. It's like putting a cake in front of me and going, Dave, don't eat it. What do you think I'm going to do?
Or whatever Ellie's cooking right now.
Sick of it. I'm just sick of it. Like, so many excuses made for them all the time. He puts in shit performances, gets booed. Oh, you can't boo him. Oh, well, he doesn't want to leave. He has to do what's right for him. Oh, well, we've got a new manager now. You have to give him a new chance. The manager has to look at everybody. Okay, he done it last night, and now he gets the blame. Come on, I'm fed up with it. I'm fed up. I've had it up to here with it. Let's just start calling a spade and call them for what they are. Big, overgrown man children.
Tony Bones, good to see you, my man. Spurs 72, Conrad, always good to see you. Afternoon, Spurs and Jack, depression settings over here. Believe me, man, I think it's only going to be, sore for 48 hours or so. And you do kind of get those punches in the Trossards, like King Hoddle said in the chat, and this is definitely one of them. And this deadline week does not help it at all, because now we have anxieties about whether these guys that, you know, have caused us this pain in the past are even going to be moved on in the first place, right? Are they going to stick around yet again? Spurs 72. And that's where a lot of anxiety, I think, comes from this fan base. Big up to you, my friend. Donovan Osterreicher, big up to you. He says, go get yourself some sugar-free Gatorade on me, lads. Between Dave's demon hikes and Jack's Richie runs, you guys are legends. Keep it up, lads. Come on, you Spurs. Dave, I think, has been going harder on the hikes than I even have on the runs. I've actually probably, you know, I think I'm just not pushing myself as much recently, Donovan. I'm sort of going for the same distance, kind of the same route. I should try something different, I think, to sort of push myself a bit more. And I'm also kind of, you know, going frequently, but, you know, I just need to go for something else just to push myself. But Dave, yeah, it looks like he really, you know, tore into that hike there. And I imagine the outlad gave him an earful about last night's, you know, game and everything. So Dave is just, you know, he's just worn. You know, he's just a worn man right now.
Look at me. My outlads walk me pale, Jack.
He's worn and torn. Big up to you,
Big up,
Donovan. Good to see you, my man. And
great
Dave,
to see you, my man.
Are you a Gatorade fan, or Ribena is more your?
Do you know what? I used to like Gatorade, and then once it got popular over here, they put the price up, so I don't drink it anymore.
Okay, I'm kind of
too expensive over here now.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that. Didn't know that the Gatorade was expensive. But Donovan, I like that you're into the Gatorade, and I know you do a few workouts myself. I can tell that you're a fit man. You know, whenever you've kind of come onto the shows, you always look well hydrated. Big up to you, Wemberley, as well. With a super sticker, he has said, "Keep it up." Big up to you, my friend. And Dave, he's don't keep it up with lifting the weights. I mean, this is probably what you were doing on that hike there. I mean, you know, trudging through each quarter mile, getting up there.
Look, I'll be honest, man. I was. Honestly, I'm just absolutely ruined from it, lad. I'm ruined. I wouldn't be able to carry the weights with me. I'd fall frontwards with the weight of them, to be honest with you, Jack. Wembley also follows up. He says, evening, Jack and Dave. Why is it known that Levy is fronting all transfer negotiations, just as he loves to, that I have the usual dread fear that virtually nothing more will get done by Friday night? I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? As soon as we saw Larry Kane, there's nothing else done. You know, it's everything's come to a halt. It's absolute madness. You know, I'm just absolutely sick of it. Look, I'll be honest, I don't really have any faith that we're going to get any more in here before the deadline day. I've heard it all before. Oh, players didn't want to move. Okay, the same players that are going to get an opportunity and then spurn it. You know, well, we can't pay them up. It's going to cost us too much. We take in over 500 million a year through all of our revenue sources. Surely we can take 20 million, 30 million of that and pay bums off. It's surely. You know, I'm just sick of all the excuses from now on. I'm happy to continue with the Paratici plan, because when you look at the first team under Postecoglou, it is absolutely saucing. But in order for the Paratici plan and the Postecoglou plan to continue, we need that chairman of ours to do something different than what he's done every other window and just pay them off. Not looking for the monetary value that's not there. It is not there. And people go, oh, well, there is. So-and-so has come in, so-and-so has come in. It's not there, because if it was, they'd be out of here a long time ago, not 4 years later.
It feels like Paratici, though, Dave, wants to cook, you know, 4 dishes at once and wants to, you know, clean the kitchen at the same time. But it's almost like he's not being... It's like he is, you know, being pushed back in that regard. Like he's not allowed to, you know, tackle the outcomes in maybe the real ruthless manner that I feel like he could. And he's not really tackling some of the incomings then in that also, because we've also said they're very intertwined. They're very linked, you know, the outcomings and the incomings. And I feel like Paratici, like he's done in the past, would have probably moved on a lot of these guys, you know, like he did before, and maybe a bit more of a ruthless manner. He just sort of found moves for some of these guys just to sort of get it done. And he did get out a lot of guys also before even Antonio Conte even went on his trip. He was a lot more ruthless about it. And we haven't done that this time around. And I think that's where it's a bit frustrating that I guess Paratici, or at least anybody, isn't in sort of full capacity, you know, to get, you know, on the sort of the outgoings. Because if it is, and it probably is, Daniel Levy in charge of it alongside Rebecca Capelhorn, which we're told, I mean, it's just being, you know, done with such a slow and kind of, you know, I guess just slow and just kind of lackadaisical manner. And I guess they're willing to continue to sit on these expensive assets. And I just don't get it, because it's to our own detriment and it's to the manager's detriment.
honestly, we're killing every manager. We're killing all the good players we've had at this club over the last few years, plus the ones we've signed, and the fans, for the sake of the club regaining very little money for average players. I mean, honestly, everything class about this club has to suffer for everything shit about this club. It's bloody. I'm fed up of it.
Moondog's in the house too. Good to see you, Moondog. And he says, "Good evening, Jack and Dave. I feel deflated today, like I've said to a lot of people tonight, Moondog. No shame in that. No shame in feeling deflated. No shame in feeling a bit sore after yesterday. And I think you could still feel sore today into the next one. But come Burnley, I'll be happy clapping in full speed once again. But I don't feel like this lack of movement in terms of the outgoings and other sort of signings that we need is helping Spurs fans at all right now. In fact, it's probably contributing to people's sort of pain and anxiety right now. Some of the lack of movement and everything right now in the market. Big up to the Moondog, and hopefully you're keeping well, my friend.
Yeah, big up Moondog.
Rob Fuzzard says, by canceling Aurier and Doherty's contracts to get them out, we set a precedent. Now agents are out to screw us, trying to get the same outcome here.
Look, it's a precedent that needs to be set. If they don't want to go anywhere, and for instance, right, Ndombele, what's he offered to Tottenham the last 3 years? Now he wants to sit there and wait for a Champions League club. Is the guy deluded? Like, this is the thing. We're dealing with deluded people.
Yeah.
And I don't care about it's a precedent that we should set, and I think we should follow through on even harder, because what it does then in the future, it sends out a message to anyone like Ndombele, like Lascelles, so people like that think they're going to come to Tottenham for a payday. It makes them think twice. Makes them think twice. That they're not going to get away with it. They just won't. So for me, I would double down on it, and I'd follow through with it even harder, and I'd say, you, my office right now. 100% paid up, 100% paid up. Get out my club. Walk out. And don't even think about you're not even clearing your locker. Just get out. Don't even say goodbye. Go. And we have to do it, because what we've seen every single summer transfer window over the last couple of years, we can't do this because we need to do this, because we need to concentrate on the outgoings. Okay, but I've heard the same last 2-3 summers now. They've had long enough to try and get a resale value on them. It hasn't happened. So now I'm at the point I'm losing my patience. Pay them up. It's that simple.
Just also though, Rob, I must say, I feel like Jed Spence has actually, in a way, done what most of these guys don't seem to be able to do, or just won't be willing to do. Jed Spence, it looked like he was waiting for that Premier League move. He was waiting to be able to, make sort of a lateral step in some kind. But I guess it never came his way, and he just sort of sucked it up by the looks of things and went back to the Championship, took kind of a step backwards to, I guess, hopefully in his case, maybe take a step forward in the future to be able to progress, again, to kind of start over. And some of these guys just don't want to do that. It looks like Tanguy doesn't want to do that. Eric Dyer doesn't really want to do that. You look at Hugo Lloris, doesn't seem to want to do that either. He doesn't want to really accept, the bids that really will come his way. A lot of players, like David kind of said there, and like you're kind of alluding to, don't seem to really want to accept their fate. And also, too, it feels like we have a lot of players right now that are just holding us hostage with their sort of wage demands, with their future. They're getting moves accepted. They're getting bids accepted by Spurs, but they're just being picky about it intentionally because they just want the best of both worlds for them. I understand if you're in anybody's position, you want to, have the best of both worlds. But in that case, I don't think these players really deserve the best of both worlds. They haven't played well enough, I think, to deserve the wage demands that they probably want from some of these clubs. And they haven't really played well enough to deserve the wages that they're on here at Spurs to stick around. So in any case, I think they are going to get criticism, and they are going to get sort of heat to come their way, because, if they're going to sort of hold the club hostage, I encourage the club to embarrass these players, and I encourage the club to make life difficult for them.
The thing is as well, though, Jack, all right, is like, we sit here and we go, they have to do what's best for them. Okay, grand. But, there's plenty of players that have gone to a certain level, realized that hasn't worked out, and took a pay cut to go to drop down a level and build themselves back up again because football is their first priority. Our players don't seem to want to do that. I wonder why. Is it because of the money they're on?
Yeah, and Rob kind of followed up saying Jed is still young. The older players have bigger egos and want those big paydays, those last big paydays.
That's the problem.
That's how
that's
it is
the problem
these days.
right there.
And I think that's where football is headed right now. Sadly enough, it doesn't seem to be as much about the career and, where their, career is headed. It's more about, where the finance, side of things is headed for them. But we're going to get into the news here, everybody. Please, if you haven't already, do smash that like button for us. Keep getting your comments in. We'll try our best to bring them up on screen and engage with them. We're going to get through the news here for you guys, give our sort of quick thoughts on them. And then, we'll see, probably you guys next time for the next transfer news show, because this stuff is kind of going to start, hopefully at least, moving kind of quickly. And, what we might be talking about today could be pretty old news by, the next day. Jed Spence, though, has been officially moved on to Leeds United. It is a £1 million loan deal with, I believe, no option, to buy. I must say, this has been probably one of the more embarrassing transfers on Spurs' behalf. It felt like it was just sort of two things happening at once, where I think Daniel Levy had, some sort of friendship or some sort of relationship with Jed Spence's agent or Jed Spence's agency, and Spurs needed a right wing back. So I guess that was sort of the logic behind it, just, knock two birds with one stone with that. But didn't end up, working out for us. And I wish the best of luck to Jed Spence. And in a way, I actually applaud him for doing what we just mentioned earlier that some of the other players haven't, which is actually just taking that step backwards in order to maybe take a step forwards in his career. And it seems like plenty of the other players aren't willing to do that for whatever reason, or I guess like Rob said, maybe more for their own financial reasons.
Just quickly, I do feel sorry for Jed Spence, because he was used as a pawn between Daniel Levy gaining control and Conte gaining control. Conte refused to play him because he wanted full control. Daniel Levy wanted him to play him because he wanted full control. So he was basically coming to Tottenham and used as a pawn for a power struggle. So I feel sorry for Jed Spence. And I hope it works out for him at Leeds. I really do. And just big up Conrad quickly. He says, he's working to convince the player. What has he done that he thinks he deserves? It's not even that. I mean, like, he should be looking at it as a second or third or fourth choice. He shouldn't need convincing. He's just, okay, grand, I'll go. I'll prove everyone wrong. Simple.
He should be wanting to play all the time. That's what I think in Tanguy's case. He should realize that a club that's willing to give him, minutes, at a consistent basis is probably the most that he could probably get at this stage, with where his career is. There are a lot of players up for sale, according to Gary Jacob of the Times. Hugo Lloris could have his contract terminated. Eric Dyer has been offered a move to Fulham. Tanguy and Ndombele has to decide whether to join Genoa on loan, and Jaffa Tanganga also has interest from Italy, while Reguilon is expected to leave. I'm actually disappointed to see that Reguilon is expected to leave, because I do feel like he would have been a better left back last night than Ben Davies was, at least in possession. Absolutely would have been a far better left back in possession. Question marks probably defensively, but he's far pacier than Ben Davies is. So some of those balls over the top, I actually feel like Reguilon would have been able to recover to, better than Ben Davies did. But the rest of these guys, I mean, Jaffa Tanganga, I have no harsh feelings towards. I do want him to get that move wherever it may be so he can get regular football. But the rest of these guys couldn't really care much for, and I want them to get their moves because they do seem to be the three that I've been referring to that seem to be holding this club hostage right now. And those are Tanguy, Hugo Lloris, and Eric Dyer right now. So I hope that we get those moves done.
Just on that, Jack, if we end up terminating Hugo Lloris's contract, I'm going to be livid we didn't do that at the start of the summer. Absolutely livid.
Yeah, because what was the point? And then not doing it earlier if you're doing it now.
Well, why did he hold out for so long, right? Because Daniel Levy wanted to try and get a fee. That was the whole point behind it. But all it's done is just hold us back. So that should have been terminated as soon as he announced at the end of the season he didn't want to be a part of the future plans at Tottenham Hotspur. Eric Dyer going to Fulham. I mean, look, I reckon that's because we want Adarabioyo. So let's see how that one pays out. Like I said, I really don't care where he goes. Just go, just leave. And then I've already said it on Tanguy. He shouldn't need convincing. That guy should be lucky. That guy should feel lucky that he's been given a third and a fourth chance, if you want me to be brutally honest with you. He should be jumping at the chance to go and play regular football. Jumping at it.
And Moondog is exactly on your point there. Why do we always leave it to the last minute madness? And Hugo Lloris's case is a very good example of that, Moondog. I mean, why did we have to leave it till the end of the window to decide his future? It's not like we're going to make much money from a fee of it. Also, too, the way that he kind of gave up from what we've been told, on the squad in that Newcastle game, it sort of just made most sense to sort of just kind of cut ties, the moment that the transfer window opened up, and Spurs haven't done that here. And it's then led to this really awkward situation where we've just let a guy just sort of walk around the training ground that has no future with the club. And has made it very clear has no future with the club. The player has made it clear he doesn't want to be around the club. And for some reason, we're just kind of letting him walk around, work out, ride the bike and pick up his wages and do a few a few keeper exercises. I really just don't get it. It's in his case, it really doesn't make a lot of sense at all. If he has no interest in playing for Spurs, Spurs have no interest in him playing for us. Why on earth are we paying him right now just to work out and, walk around the training ground and everything right now? It doesn't make much sense to me, Moondog.
Most
And it does
expensive
speak
gym
to
buddy
last
I've
night.
ever heard of.
You take him, Moondog, you take him. But big up to you, my man. Jaffa Tanganga here. This is another example of some last-minute madness. Tanganga to Torino, not happening after the Italian club and Spurs could find an agreement. Always a chance these signings can be revived closer to the deadline, but now it's said to be off. That's according to Charlie Eccleshare of The Athletic, and he also said Tanganga's priority is still to play regularly. I have no hard feelings towards Tanganga. I really like the guy. I think he has needed those regular minutes because the fact he wasn't given them, I think, has led to his kind of own decline, or it's led to him, having those poor performances where he was just sort of tossed into the fray and expected to do well. And some players do, take those chances, right? There are a lot of really good players who would take those chances when they're given to them. But I do think Tanganga at one stage looked like a very talented defender and looked like he could really head places. And he just was sort of taken out of the firing line and was taken out of the regular lineup. And maybe for some valid reasons, but maybe also for some harsh reasons too. And then he's also just been kept around as a homegrown pawn, at this club for a long time. And I just feel bad for the guy. I hope he gets his move somewhere because I don't know. I just think he's good enough somewhere to be playing regular games, like a Torino, maybe future, in the future, maybe a bigger club in, Italy. I could see him playing regular minutes for. I think he is good enough in the future.
We've completely mishandled Jaffa Tanganga's career. The club have. Look, I get he's had his own injuries, right? That's fair enough. But when he put them injuries behind him, he had a chance to leave this football club and go to AC Milan as a centre back. And do you know why Tottenham pulled it? Because we couldn't get another centre back in the door before the window closes, despite Antonio Conte asking for defenders in the door. And he didn't play underneath Antonio Conte. Very rarely played underneath him, yet despite staying injury-free. And, we already had, five defenders at the club anyway, and it's sort of like, honestly, when I seen what happened on that Sky Sports Deadline Day documentary that they made to Jaffa Tanganga, I felt so bad for the kid. He's in there pleading with them, let me go out and play first-team football. No, I'm sorry, we couldn't get our business done, so you're staying. Despite having a whole summer to do it. In fact, despite having years to rebuild that centre-back. So we've completely screwed this kid's career up. We've played a part in it, alongside his injuries. It's not just been his injuries. Spurs have not let this guy go out to develop whatsoever, despite him pleading to go out there. So I feel so sorry for Jaffa Tanganga.
For such a talented defender, like Jason Bell has said here, we didn't give him those good, loans, during those prime and crucial development years. We didn't give him those loans and those chances to be able to develop his game. And yeah, you have to feel bad for the kid. Good point there, Jacob. Good to see you. Ricardo as well, fellow member in the chat. Ian Ferguson, thank you for joining us as well. C. Sherman, Lynch 616 as well. Thank you all for joining us, everybody. But yeah, I hope Tanganga gets his move, but at the moment, it looks like one that he had lined up is actually not going to go through. So I guess just, stay tuned on that one. Stay tuned on Jaffa Tanganga's case. Another move that's not happening. It's just been a theme of that, hasn't it, Dave? Moves just not happening. Moves being canceled. Moves being rejected. Moves just not being agreed. Tanguy Ndombele, Genoa are set to leave negotiations for Tanguy Ndombele. No agreement on the player side, and Genoa are not willing to wait until deadline day. Deal on verge of collapsing despite agreeing on a fee with Spurs. And then there's been that rumor as well that's come out that apparently Tanguy Ndombele is waiting for some sort of offer from a Champions League club of some kind. As good as I think he is a bit deluded to think that he is going to get a move to a Champions League club and get a lot of minutes. Maybe he just wants to play at a really high level, but he doesn't really care how many minutes he actually gets. That could be the case. Maybe getting a lot of minutes and getting a lot of playing time doesn't mean that much to Tanguy Ndombele. It could be I am speculating, but I could be wrong, but it does seem that way. If he's willing to wait for a Champions League club, I don't see giving him a lot of minutes.
just when are you even just going to have some self-respect? You know, the guy hasn't completed 90 minutes and I don't know how long, you know, and he's sitting there thinking he still has a chance of going to a club and playing Champions League football and lasting, you know, all the group games and everything else. It's just, it's so deluded. You know, look, I'll be honest. I think the guy is supremely talented. He's got more talent in his little left toe than what half of our squad do put together. However, he just cares about his money. It's all he cares about. And I don't want anyone to say he can't make that assumption. I will make that assumption, considering he doesn't want to move for football as his first priority.
When you're that talented as well, right? When you're
Yeah.
that talented and you could
What's
be
the
one of the
wage,
best,
Jack?
you could be one of the best midfielders in the world, but yet you're refusing move after move after move to clubs that are offering you lots of playing time to rekindle that talent, to rekindle that form. And he's just not taking it. Conor Gallagher has been linked. I guess we're done with the outgoings there, everybody. So we're transitioning now a bit into the incomings. So from what we can summarize again, just pretty much moves just collapsing and moves not happening. Tanguy Ndombele, Japhet Tanganga, Hugo Lloris, Eric Dyer, some other cases as well. And then Jed Spence is, the first official sort of outgoing, at least of this week, I think on top of Alfie Devine as well. Alfie Devine has been loaned out to Port Vale. Best of luck to Alfie. And I think just recently too, Port Vale last night, they did actually advance, to the next round. And Alfie played a full 90 minutes. So good for him. It looks like maybe we're giving him a good loan spell if he's already playing 90 minutes that quickly into the team. But on to the incomings here, everybody. Again, please smash that like button if you can for us. Keep getting in your comments. And if you do want to stop us at any stage, feel free to throw in a super chat. Conor Gallagher news here. Tottenham are likely to step up interest in Conor Gallagher if they do sell Højbjerg. That's from Gary Jacob of the Times. We spoke probably a lot about Conor Gallagher this summer. I'll be honest, I don't really see this one happening. I feel like it would be a difficult move to sort of kind of line up with Chelsea. Usually it's, not very often that we buy from Chelsea, I feel like anymore, Dave, unless I'm wrong. And Conor Gallagher, too, I just don't really think of as, similar to Højbjerg, even though people, whether you rate him or not, I just don't think Conor Gallagher is all that similar to Højbjerg. I see Conor Gallagher as more like a number 8. Perhaps he wants to play Skip as a number 6 and then move Conor Gallagher to maybe more of a number 8. But I don't know. I just don't rate Skip then in the number 6 position, but that's a whole nother conversation. Yeah, I guess entirely. Dave, any thoughts? Any new thoughts on Conor Gallagher? We spoke a few times about him in the summer.
I know that Tottenham and Chelsea's relationship broke down. They don't negotiate deals. We're not Arsenal. Arsenal and Chelsea seem to do that every single window, negotiate deals between each other. We don't. We refuse to sell to Chelsea, and they won't sell us anybody. They had I think Levy sort of had made himself clear over the Modric thing that time, and since that time it's just completely broken down. I get Chelsea have new owners in Todd Bowley, however, I still don't think he's going to want to do any business with Tottenham personally. So I'm not convinced on this. And look, this was a name thrown around earlier on in the window. If we get him now, I'll be asking what's taking it. Why did it take 2 months to get a player in then? If we were linked with him earlier in the window and now we end up getting him in before the window closes, why does it take 2 months? I'm sick of it. Look, I think this one's hearsay, Jack. Although, I say that he is English. We do need to sort out the homegrown problem. But I just don't think Chelsea are going to sell to us, being brutally honest.
Yeah, I don't see it.
That
Crystal Palace season was a fun season, right?
If you get that player, Jack. If you get that player that we got from Palace. I thought he'd done well. But, look, let's wait and see. I
would say his best attribute is his pressing. Wouldn't you say? Like his pressing is, very good. His work rate and his pressing. I remember being very good at Crystal Palace. And then
he can play a little too. To be fair to him, he can play a bit too. Look, he's better than Skip. But again, he's going to be coming here as a backup. He ain't getting in ahead of Madison, Basuma, Papa Massar, or Bentancur when he comes back fit. So
that's true. Bentancur too. Yeah,
I think he probably knows that himself.
Yeah. I just don't see this one happening, everybody. But that's our opinion at the end of the day. Brennan Johnson, Tottenham proposed deal for Brennan Johnson will go down to the wire on Friday. Deadline day, Spurs do not want to meet Forest's £50 million valuation and have offered players, including Davinson Sanchez, as part of the deal. I think we'll get onto the conversation whether Dave and I actually prefer Ansu Fati or Brennan Johnson towards the end. But just on this, if we're actually including Davinson Sanchez in deals, for outgoings, I really, again, have to question why, he is still being kept around and, being considered for lineups and everything. It's just really bad management on Spurs' part to, be, forcing Ange to pick a center back that they don't even rate, highly enough that they actually are still listening to offers for. But that's, I think, another sort of thing. But yeah, I'm a little kind of frustrated to see that part of it. But Brennan Johnson, there you are, everybody. It looks like it's going to go down to the wire. It would be a huge deal and a huge fee. So it couldn't really happen quickly. That's for sure, right? It's one of those deals that definitely could go to sort of the last few hours of it. And then finally on to Ansu Fati. Tottenham have held talks about signing Ansu Fati on loan from Barcelona, but a deal is complicated by him earning about £13.7 million a year at the Spanish Giants. Barcelona want his wages paid in full, and that's again from Gary Jacob of The Times. This is from a different source, Gerard Romero of Gigantes, and he says Ansu Fati has asked the club to leave in these last few hours. The player prefers the Premier League. Tottenham, Chelsea, or Liverpool would be his preferences, but beware, his father wants Ansu Fati to go on loan to Sevilla, but I believe that's actually been now rejected, or I think Ansu Fati has made it clear, everybody, that he actually would prefer a move to the Premier League. This is from Helena Condis Edo, and I believe she's some sort of kind of Barca journalist or some sort of kind of Barca insider of some kind of a media personality. And she says, yesterday we already told that Tottenham was the best placed team to take Ansu Fati on loan for a season. Today, the negotiations continue with George Mendes in charge, I believe, the agent there. Ansu Fati from Fabrizio Romano has said, believe 10 hours ago, or at least a little bit more, said, understand that Tottenham are now in contact with Barcelona to negotiate for Ansu Fati. Deal on loan until June 2024. Discussion about conditions of the deal, but Barca want 100% of the salary covered. That salary, again, everybody, would be £13.7 million a year. Ansu also presented to Chelsea as an opportunity, but no formal approach yet made by Chelsea. Last but not least, this has come at least most recently, if I'm not mistaken, from Fabrizio Romano, the most recent news from Fabrizio, and he says contacts between Tottenham and Barcelona for Ansu Fati continue. Spurs working on Brennan Johnson deal, waiting for the final decision. Ansu Fati loan move. Brennan Johnson has to be a permanent move. Tottenham have to decide in the next 24 hours. Two very different moves, Dave. One is a permanent, the other is a loan move. One is a very expensive loan move. The other is a very expensive deal. So it seems like at the end of the day, Spurs are going for a high-profile young talent, right? Ansu Fati, very high-profile, maybe hasn't been, hitting, the form that he used to, but still a very, kind of well-renowned, younger talent. Same thing with Brennan Johnson. Whether you have a good opinion of him or a bad opinion, he is maybe one of the younger England talents around that is kind of getting a bigger reputation each week. So it seems like the type of players Spurs are going after here is similar, young, talents under a certain age, with a big profile, but, they're different types of moves.
Yeah, look, Jack, we know what Paratici's recruitment is. A lot of it's been 25 or under, right? So we expect this now when it sort of comes to the market. Look, with Brennan Johnson, you're getting a good player. He's got all the right attributes. However, he's still raw. And in the big moments, he still flaps at a lot of his chances. So, there's going to have to be work done on him to sort of bring him up to a top 6 club, right? And this is where I get a bit weary, right? Richarlison was scoring 12 goals a season on average for Everton. We pulled him up to Tottenham. He can't do it. Brennan Johnson scores 10 goals for Nottingham Forest on average. If you bring him to Tottenham, can he still produce it? It's a different ball game doing it week in, week out at the top level than it is down in the bottom half of the Premier League doing it every couple of games or what have you not. So I think it's a big jumps for Brennan Johnson to make. But look, he's a decent player, and like Rich says, he does work hard. He does have good work ethic, and that work ethic combined with talent will always make you a decent player.
But similar to Richarlison, the final pass and finish a bit clunky, right? Despite that work rate.
That's the difference. Richarlison you just can't play football with him. My dad actually said it to me today. He says, you look at Richarlison's goals for Tottenham, nearly every single one of them have been a ball into the box and a header. it's all he's good for. You can't play with Richarlison at the feet. But, you know, this guy, Jack, it's a different story having acres of space to run into like he does when he's playing with Nottingham Forest.
Correct.
Than what he will with, you know, playing against low block teams. That footwork has to be crisp. It's got to be clean. It's got to be tidy. It's got to be quick. And you can't take too many heavy touches. So, you know, you ain't getting the finished article. And I don't think you're going to get a guy that walks in straight away. And he doesn't really 100% straight away improve that first 11. If we're looking at him to come in and play a striker, I'll question it even more. If he's being brought in and the son is going to be moved into the forward line, I can understand it. But look, I'm not going to sit here and cry over the fee, Jack. It's not my money. I want players in the door. And he's homegrown, which means it comes at a premium. And I understand that. So I ain't going to moan at the fee. When it comes to ANSU Fati, look, a guy with insane potential. Everyone's seeing what the guy can do. However, his career has tailed off a little. He's had a few injuries and that as well. And this is why we're at this situation. And we have to understand this as Spurs fans. A lot of Spurs fans will see the name ANSU Fati and absolutely cream themselves. But you got to look into it more and question, why is a club like Tottenham able to get their hands on ANSU Fati? And that is obviously because he's nowhere near the level he was at one stage. Now,
correct.
The reason why we're also going for him is because Barcelona don't actually want to sell him right now. They want to try and loan him out and see if he can get his career back on track and take him. And Tottenham are the ones that have said, okay, we'll take him on loan. However, are we going to pay 100% of his wages? I very much highly doubt we are. So I think there's going to be a stumbling block there because knowing Spurs, they'll go, it's a player on the down. He's had a few injury problems. It's a risk.
Yeah, and we like to mess with
Barca. Full wages. Yeah, we ain't paying full wages. But I think it's important that everyone understands this is not the same player of 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Jack.
No, not at all. And there are a few things that you mentioned there that I think are definitely interesting. Ansu Fati, I think Martin Walton brought up earlier in the comments. He said if we did pay 100% of those wages, he would actually be the highest earner at Tottenham, which just doesn't really make a lot of sense for a 20-year-old kid like Martin Walton brought up there. And I think that's a very spot on comment. And it does, definitely have something to do, that affects dynamics, that affects sort of, at least some of the team chemistry within, especially if he's going to be sitting on the bench or maybe not playing every game either too. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense, I think, in that regard. But I would say on your point, just when we talk about the players themselves, Brennan Johnson, I agree, is maybe more, at least from what he's shown, his goals, to my knowledge, have been more in the transition, have been more in the counterattack sort of kind of scenarios with a lot of space in behind and sort of Nottingham Forest sitting nice and deep and then them sort of countering teams and him being able to run in behind with that pace and with that finishing that he sort of has. If he's being asked to be a right winger and we come up against a West Ham or a very sort of defensively organized team, even like a Fulham had a very, not really a deep block, but they weren't pressing us all the way to the goalkeeper the whole match. They were kind of setting up in a certain defensive shape. And if we had a Brennan Johnson, do you see him as a creative enough player to really break down teams? I don't really, see him as that player. I think of him as more of a guy for the transition. And like you maybe said, might be a bit better suited for at least right now until he kind of develops other sides of his game. Might be better suited for other sort of lower league, or lower level sides in the league because they're going to be a bit more without the ball and they're going to be relying on those sort of opportunities to hit teams with pace, with, with speed on those transitions. And that's what Brennan Johnson is so good at. But if I were to be asking him to break down a team, go at his left back time and time again to whipping crosses and create chances, just don't see him doing that. Whereas in Ansu Fati, like someone brought up earlier, even if we rate him or not, he's more experienced in that regard because he plays for a Barcelona who play a tiki-taka style, very possession-heavy style, and often come up against teams that are just going to hope that they can sit without the ball and try to hit them on the counter. And usually they're the team with the most possession. They're the team trying to take it to them and trying to really break sides down. So Ansu Fati would probably be more comfortable with trying to break a team down. I do see him as more of a left winger, though, than I do a right winger. So I am kind of a bit confused by that. And also Brennan Johnson is more of a right winger than I think a left winger. So interesting on that regard. Also, I think in Ansu Fati's case, the reason he's being moved out, Dave, is because of what you said. He hasn't really gotten any sort of real minutes from Xavi since he's kind of fallen off. And I think the reason he fell off is because he had a really bad injury. I think it was like in 2021 or something like that. He had a really bad injury that pretty much ruled him out for the whole season, or ruled him out for a really lengthy stretch of time. And he hasn't really been the same player since. And you're kind of then hoping that, we're going to get at least close to that original sort of Ansu Fati, but it's hard to know because he hasn't really ever been in the favor of Xavi, I think, ever since. And now we're looking at sort of other kind of Barcelona sort of starlets are kind of taking his place, like that Lamine Yamal guy, or I think his name is taking his place. And there's some other younger kids, sort of taking a spot. So he is being moved out for a reason because he hasn't been hitting, the levels that he's supposed to be. And this would be an opportunity for him to rekindle that form. And so there's that as well. He's not the same Ansu Fati, like you mentioned, that we know in the past. Last thing is his dad, I think, is a bit of a, he's in the tabloids a lot. I know his dad is always kind of, his dad complained to Xavi. I think that's part of the reason he's even being moved out is because there was a bit of sort of friction between Xavi and his parents or something, because his dad was complaining about the playing time. So there's that to consider as well. It's kind of like Rabiot, like he has like, a very active sort of family. Certain things. So that's my
bit like Harry Kane as well, his brother Charlie, right? But look, do you know what, Jack? Like, the thing is, right, I just don't think we're at the stage where we can afford to try and revive someone's career, right? We need players for the here and now that are ready to play, the players that are on the upward trajectory. I think this Ansu Fati one is a huge risk, and I like him as the player he was. He's not that player right now, and I just think, why are we bringing in a guy and rebuilding his career when we need players that are coming in ready to help us now? I just don't understand it. I think that's assigning more to appease the fan base and get them off the back. It's no surprise it's come out as soon as the Fulham game, as soon as we go out with a cup game, right? So, look, let's wait and see what happens. I don't get me wrong, I'll be as excited as everybody else, but I also understand it's not the player with the stats on FIFA or Football Manager that we're getting. We're getting a lesser of a player. Foggy Fung says Levy rejected 9 million for Sanchez. Why? Cheaper to keep. It's not. It's not. It's not. He's got what, 1 or 2 years left on his contract. He's paid 60 odd grand a year. He'll end up paying nearly 9 million over the course since we signed him on wages anyway. So just accept the cash and ship him out. Look, I can understand Sanchez rejecting Russia. Fine. He's had chances to go to Turkey, to France. He doesn't want to take
Turkey as well. Yeah, Turkey. Yeah, chances to Turkey. I totally forgot about that. I even, forgot to mention that earlier too. He's had so many moves that, he's been accepted. So Levy, in a way, he's not even really rejecting moves. Levy has actually accepted a lot of moves for him, but probably knowing Levy, now that he has a bit higher value all of a sudden, Sanchez, because and just sort of taken him under his wing a bit, I bet Levy is now only listening to offers, above 10 million now or something like that, because now Sanchez's stock has probably rise just, incrementally a tiny bit, which is definitely annoying. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think Sanchez is probably going to stay, unfortunately. Dave, if I were to decide between Brennan Johnson and Ansu Fati, I'd probably go for Ansu Fati. I think Brennan Johnson might be too much for 50 million pounds. If we're going to spend 50 million pounds, I'd rather us spend whatever it takes to get in an Eze, someone like that maybe, or also kind of what Martin Walton brought up here. I think a Nico Williams from, I think, Athletic Bilbao is a very talented right winger, very pacey as well, and would also bring, kind of maybe a bit better sort of creativity on that right-hand side. So if we're going to spend that much coin on another winger or another sort of creative threat, I'd rather go after somebody like an Eze for a lot of, I know he might cost more than 50 million, but I'd be willing to spend more than that if we are going to be spending that much anyways. And then same thing with Nico Williams. I think Nico Williams might be actually better bang for our buck here in that regard.
See, we have to understand, though, the club have to improve the homegrown core, and they have to get homegrown players in here. That's why you're seeing Conor Gallagher. I mean, look, I'd love to list, there's a number of players I could list off across Europe that I'd love to have. But we need homegrown players in here. That's why it's going to be homegrown. That's why you're seeing Conor Gallagher, Brennan Johnson. Look, Jack, you want me to be brutally honest, lad. If we get in Brennan Johnson, I'm not going to balk at the fee. I can understand it. The thing is with Eze, Palace just ain't going to sell him for anything less than 100 million, because if they sell him, they're relegated. It's that
Yeah, they're
simple.
relegating themselves.
He's the one pulling all the strings for them. I've watched their games this season. He's the only one pulling the strings for them going forward. If they lose him, they're gone. So they will not cash in for anything less than 100 million. But look, you know, I'd say get them both in. Get Brendan Johnson in and bring in ANSU Fati, right? All you're doing is paying ANSU Fati's wages. You're not paying a fee. So why can't you have both?
Love to, Dave. Would love to. But yeah, if I had to decide between Ansu Fati and Johnson, I might as well just go for Ansu Fati. But Dave makes a very good point there with the homegrown quota. It's something you can't ignore. It's something that we can't forget about. It always has to come into play as well with some of the signings. And you have to realize with the homegrown players, you're going to be spending so much more than you would with a player outside of the Premier League and a player outside the homegrown quota. It's just how it is with the prices. Even if the player, outside of the Premier League is more talented than the homegrown guy, you will end up still paying more for the homegrown guy.
Like, the thing is, we can register some of the under 21s if we've got a problem with the homegrown issue, no problem. But the reality is the club don't have to do that and can still have a 25-man squad. So why would they limit themselves like that? But you got to think about it, right? We sold Winks, we've sold Harry Kane, 2 homegrown players. Tanganga's on his way out the door, 3rd homegrown player. I presume one of Whiteman or Brandon Austin might end up leaving, another homegrown player there. Who else have you got? Harvey White, it looks like he's on the way out the door as well. I don't think Andrew has any plans for him whatsoever. So he's currently deciding what sort of club or what club he wants to move to and where he wants to go. So we've again, it's a problem the club have made. Look, I don't mind them selling on the likes of Harry Winks and all. They should have kept Harry Kane, but it's a homegrown issue and we have to solve it at some point. I don't think the club need to go out and sign 4 or 5 homegrown players. Definitely not, because you look at what we've got coming through. In about 18 months' time, you've plenty to pick from. Plenty. Some of them just ain't ready yet, but in about a year to 18 months' time, you'll have lots to pick from. But right now, as this window stands, we need to sign a couple.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think we have so many talented academy kids coming through that it's good to clear out a lot of our homegrown guys right now to make space for them to come through to the squad. But you don't also want to buy too many because we already do have so many talented players like you mentioned there. That's a good point, Dave. I think we're going to leave it there, though, everybody. It's just sort of a transfer news update for today. Like I mentioned in the beginning, if you weren't here with us, or at least earlier, we're going to double down on the podcast and make it up to you guys next week. We're going to do the Mailbag podcast for all of the members. That's going to be exclusive to all the members. You guys, just like you are in the chat, get to ask us questions. And, we'll be, asking you guys questions actually ahead of time that we'll sort of read aloud some of your answers for. And then we'll also have the regular podcast with a guest like we always do as well. So we're just sort of going to move the podcast next week, kind of post deadline day. So I think also we'll have more clarity about what we are talking about, because sometimes what can happen is the news is moving so quickly that what we end up talking about, it's not really all that relevant, 12 hours later sometimes. So to avoid that, I think we're going to be doubling down on the podcast next week. Hopefully you guys can understand. I saw this from earlier, Mark, apology accepted, my man. But knowing me, and I think plenty of people know, I don't really take anything that personally. I think for people in the chat, you can call me moronic, you can call me deluded, you can call me a happy clapper, you can call me almost anything, call me a yank, you can call me pretty much anything you like. Usually I take it in good faith. And I also realize that I am usually pretty deluded and have some pretty absurd opinions at times. I'm not going to shout down anybody's throat or anything like that, or, shout down anybody's face and call them a problem.
Do you know what?
So big up to you, Mark. I appreciate that, but I didn't even need that, my man. I didn't even need that. That's very nice of you.
Do you know what the thing is, Matt? You could have just came in here, put in comments, and we would have just carried on as normal, But what I will say is respect, brother, because it takes bollocks to do that. So fair play to you, my man. Absolute fair play. But look, guys, we are going to end it off there. Your boy needs a nap. He's tired. Appreciate all you guys for tuning in. I appreciate Jack putting the graphics together today as well. And I appreciate everyone who continues to help support us where they can. Donovan Oosterreicher, Wembley, big yourself up, Wembley. Big D, he's robbed my nickname, but we'll let him have it. Moondog, Rob Fuzzard as well, and Foggy Foam. So big yourselves up, everyone. Really do appreciate that. And we appreciate every single one of you that you continue to tune in. We started this, two and a bit years ago, maybe a bit longer. And I thought, look, it might do all right for I might do all right for a year, and then people get sick of it. But here we still are. So I appreciate every single one of you. You allow us to live our dream every single day. So thank you, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.
See you, boys.
Come on, you Spurs. In the big Ange, I still trust.
In the big Ange, we just trust Dave.
Stop.
Never stopping. Keep going. See you, everybody.
Everywhere we go.